stiff for how you hope we even. Thinking about that wildlife until they realize it's open season. Lacking on endless, ain't no coming to. Never seem to back up what they say once in front of you. Never been too humble of a dude to humble dudes. You messing with the one who's always been the number two. It get quiet on the set when it's time for action. Words don't match verbs, they need closed captions. It's kinda funny now that no one's laughing. They need my reaction to attract attraction. But I don't do favors, brought light to truth like room raiders. Niggas won't beef, I'll soon cater. Keep a magazine, don't assume fader. Plans to move on can resume later. I check haters with chess moves. Only execution, no excuse. There's things that you need to confess to. Don't let your pride be your reason for check use. When you son niggas, they feel the need to throw shade. I'd rather hear lies and see it quoted on your grave. Get us jealous. Meanwhile, tour buses taking road trips on the same road that you claiming to have paved. And where a pit stop should be obvious. But if not, just know it involves deposit slips. Going live, preaching love, but show the opposite. Can't apologize, too busy being an apologist. You know, views from the top take more than clicks. It ain't over yet, there's a score to fix. Got a lot on my chest, it take more than Vic. Should've paid me my respect way before the split. Foot on their necks and I don't plan on going gentile. Ziggin talking crazy like they're mental. Guess that's what happens when you let too much of the fame get to your tempel. Life's about principle, I'm just spitting like I'm Pimpel. The nerve you getting is in what you do for titles. Backstabbing the people that help with your survival. Get ahead and start making the realest your rivals. Fall off and need a number to dial for revival. Need a medic to check all his vitals. Plain to see my arrival was vital. They're playing the part in which you're downward spiral. But you haven't spoken reasons why you really viral. It's cold when you lie without a blanket. Keep you up at night thinking how your name is tainted. Perfect time to quarantine, ain't it? Hope you and your senses get more acquainted. Views from the top take more than clicks. Score to fix. More than Vicks. Before the split.
This down to the end exclusive.
Chessboard over the headboard. Learn how my enemies move and get prepared for it. Ops plotting on everything that I bled for. Just remember to guard your head before you head for it. Put away swords as advantages in a pen. I know a few cuts in the bandage come with a win, but I feel like it's too much damage to fake amends. Restoring balance after revenge. Trips on the high road are now over and you know the reason. 'Tis the season for sowing and reaping. Point stiff for how you hope we even. Thinking about that wildlife until they realize it's open season. Lacking on endless, ain't no coming to. Never seem to back up what they say once in front of you. Never been too humble of a dude to humble dudes. You messing with the one who's always been the number two. It get quiet on the set when it's time for action. Words don't match verbs, they need closed captions. It's kinda funny now that no one's laughing. They need my reaction to attract attraction. But I don't do favors, brought light to truth like room raiders. Niggas won't beef, I'll soon cater. Keep a magazine, don't assume fader. Plans to move on can resume later. I check haters with chess moves. Only execution, no excuse. There's things that you need to confess to. Don't let your pride be your reason for check use. When you son...
This episode of the Cab Grand Rising Show is brought to you by Autochthonous Assembly, where the real work gets done. For the first-time visitors who may be wondering who Autochthonous Assembly is, Autochthonous Assembly, or A2 for short, is a gathering of minds that do the work. A2 is a non-profit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous Americans' voices by using genealogy, also known as family history or family tree. Genealogy is the study of families and the tracing of their lineages in history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Autochthonous Assembly's core values are the foundation of its company, essential to its success, and serves as the lens through which it evaluates every business decision. The core values are integrity, know and do what is right, respect, treating others the way you want to be treated, responsibility, embrace opportunities to contribute, servant leadership, serve the common good. Along with a key emphasis on genealogy, A2 is also committed to providing our communities with information and access to available grants and funding through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the United States Department of Agriculture, the Farm Service Agency, and other departments and agencies that offer programs to help them become self-sufficient. Building on a strong community reputation, Autochthonous Assembly continues to strengthen the growth of the relationship and development of our communities. Peace and Grand Rising.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
One. Grand rising, everyone. Grand rising. Peace, peace, peace. How's everyone doing this rising? Seem like we got a special guest this rising up here with us. Our one and on, my brother and your brother, David Corey. How you doing this rising, brother?
I'm all right. I'm all right. How's everybody?
He say that. David Corey.
You sound like how I was feeling a day ago.
Yeah.
Grand rising, everyone.
You know, my people, I love my city, I love my neighbors, but I don't want to see y'all for 2 weekends now. So how's everything this rising, Gabrielle, so far?
So far, so good. A little tired, but I think waking up late in a panic works sometimes. So I'm up. Had a really, really good weekend. Long weekend. Really, really good weekend. How you feeling?
Oh, I feel great. And again, congratulations to all the seniors that graduated. Regardless on how people might think of the school system, that is an accomplishment that a lot of people don't get to share or feel. So again, congratulations to all our young men and women who have graduated. Because I know here they can't do regular graduations, and a lot of them had to do virtual graduations. So I know here we did like a parade to where we drove down the streets playing music, honking the horns.
Yeah.
You know, just to show our appreciation for what the younger generation is doing and what they have to go through. Because if it's not easy on us as an adult, you can just imagine how it's playing out on them. So again, congratulations to all our young men and women for graduating.
Absolutely. Congratulations. They put in that time. Congratulations.
I mean, other than that, anything interesting this weekend?
Yeah. Why does this weekend seem longer than the weekdays?
I had no idea. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm like you. It's like I don't feel it until it's like Saturday and Sunday. I'm like, whew, feel like a whole week off of 2 days alone.
Yeah. David Corey says, every child coming out of schools 2020, congratulations, all caps.
You say it don't matter if he in the chat out there or the chat up here. It's still going to be all caps.
Yeah, that's funny. That is funny.
No sellout in the chat talking some I've been replays. You stupid, bro. Get your butt up here.
Get it. And he in all caps. Hold on.
Here we go.
Silly behind. That boy had bad.
David Corey said he even filling in for the for you too. Hey, he got me with that. I'm like, hold on now. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was double cousin real quick. Like, oh.
Yeah, I had to process real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and happy Memorial Day to any of the families that celebrated or have loved ones that served in military and stuff like that. Regardless, again, on how we might feel about it, we do have members of our community that do have lost ones, who have lost loved ones.
Right.
in the military. So again, happy Memorial Day for any of them who participate.
Absolutely.
If you do, it's
I mean,
cool.
it is called Memorial.
Mm-hmm. You can just be taking the time out of using this day to remember loved ones that's passed and the messages and the lessons that they left us with, that moral guidance,
Absolutely.
Again, just because it's a holiday, for one thing, it doesn't dictate how you go about it and what you can apply it to in your own personal life. And like David Corey said, we all have members in our family that's in the military.
Yeah, pull that genealogy, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. It is Memorial.
So we're gonna finish off where we left off Friday, the last three sections of the American Indians, 1933 to 1941. Well, what y'all think about it so far, on what we covered so far?
Man, okay. So let me put my little insight in real quick. Perspectives, understandings, they expand every day. That one puts a whole other spin on paying attention to current things now, because it's more of a realization that things, even though they're talked about in the past, doesn't mean that they're not present now, if that makes sense. And so really paying attention Kill the Indian, Save the Man puts a whole, it's expanded that thought, that understanding, that the meaning or definition to that.
Yeah, it's a philosophy, a stance that has never changed.
Right.
That you can see that that's the philosophy, and it still is in 2020.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, that natural things that, you may have an issue with in elementary school. And, you got to go through all this and all that or whatnot to change it. But in all actuality, it all falls on. Yeah, again, that perspective.
Yeah, and it's something that our brother James said, is that Indian, it's your culture. It's a culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they say kill the Indian, save the man, what are they really saying?
Mm-hmm.
Strip you of your culture. Correct. Kill your culture.
Yep.
Not the human being. Your culture, your way of life, the way you think. And you can see it. And what was the end game? Assimilation.
Yep.
By our culture being killed and us being removed from our active culture, the ground from which we walk on, it makes it possible for people to create other identities and for us to just gravitate to it.
Right.
And I agree 100% that going through it does help to get a broader understanding, or overstanding, whichever word you choose to use, of the situation, that it hasn't changed.
Right.
If anything, they ramping it up even more.
Mm-hmm.
We have more distractions and more things pulling us apart now than was back then. And also you can see a lot of this happen 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Some even more recent than that. Some of these policies took effect in the 1990s.
Absolutely.
Grab this link and repost it real quick in the chats.
Okay.
And Gabrielle, you still had a link, or you need me to repost it in the back chat? And like David Corey said, coming to cities instead of staying in country. In the country, we did it trying to be them. And also, what we learned, some tribes wanted to assimilate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we stopped at national perspectives too. I have it on screen.
Oh, wait. You said national perspectives is where we stopped?
Yeah.
Okay.
David Corey silly. He said, yeah, he wanted that Cadillac in the city. The horse got old.
Okay, tell me again where we were at.
On national perspectives.
That's okay. That's past the Merriam report. It's past perspectives of the public, right?
Yeah, it's the second one after public.
Okay.
Well, right after public, yeah.
Okay, I'm there. I was there.
And again, we're reading from the encyclopedia, and it's American Indians, 1933 to 1941. And the link is in the chat already, and it will be in the form as well.
Okay. National perspectives. For decades, federal Indian policy was based on the destruction of tribes and the assimilation of American Indians. Thomas Jefferson served 1801 to 1809, followed by other national leaders, had promoted these ideas since the birth of the nation. Even those who saw American Indians as equal in abilities and standing with Euro-Americans still advocated assimilation. They were unwilling to let the Indians retain their language, culture, religion, or tribal self-governance. The reservation system that grew during President Andrew Jackson's served 1829 to 1837 administration in the early 19th century was driven by the agenda of destroying tribes and fostering assimilation. Quick little tidbit I had learned.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I had learned this is like maybe a year ago, year and a half ago, and I didn't understand what it meant, but it definitely makes more sense now. I just appreciate that I was able to retain that information. So what I had learned were when the tribes were basically meshed and brung together, different tribes were put together under Cherokee, or just basically under the 5 tribes. They were told that they couldn't speak their own for, each individual tribe, whatever language they spoke for their tribe, they couldn't speak it anymore. They had to conform and speak another tribe's language. They couldn't traditionally, they couldn't do certain things that they couldn't say and do certain things that they did within their tribe. They had to take on another tribe's language. If it makes sense how I'm saying it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was bringing those tribes together and putting them on the reservations.
Yeah, taking multiple different clans and bands, different tribes, lumping them all in one area and forcing them all to become one thing.
Right. By the first decades, by the first decades of the 20th century, it became clear that programs of assimilation did not end poverty or improve American Indian health. The native population continued to decline, just as it had since the arrival of Europeans in the Western Hemisphere 4 centuries earlier. In spite of the efforts of those enforcing assimilation, policies to transform American Indians into English speaking Christian farmers, many Indians had not made the transition and clung to old ways of life. The arrival of new leaders in Washington, D.C., in the new, excuse me, in the New Deal, including a number who had labored as social workers. Hold on. The arrival of new leaders in Washington, D.C. in the New Deal, including a number who had labored as social workers, raised the issue of supporting rather than destroying tribes and cultural identities of American Indians. The national perspective began changing. Even as the New Dealers were introducing new national perspectives, the national press still projected the old perspectives. For example, the press covering news stories during the debate over the proposed IRA still used traditional terms to describe Indians: chiefs, braves, bucks, squaws, princesses, and papooses. Huh.
You over
All
here,
of
you buck. Think about
yeah.
it.
Seeing buck now. So when you got $10 in your pocket,
Hmm.
mm,
Uh-oh.
mm. All of these terms continued a national perspective of social inferiority of the Indian peoples. Similarly, during the drought of the Dust Bowl era of the 1930s, when winds were blowing massive clouds of dust from parched, barren fields on the southern Great Plains, many stories covered the rain dances of the Plains Indians.
While they was sitting there putting your attention on the rain dance, what was really going on behind the scene?
Right.
They had Indians setting up irrigation and pipelines for watering to fix the situation
Right.
of what they caused with the Dust Bowl. Grand Rising, no sellout. How you doing this ride?
Grand Rising double cousin.
Peace, 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 peace. Y'all hear me? Can I be heard? Want to do a quick roll call. Grand Rising. Peace to the chat. Michael Brown Harris Cheek. Grand Rising. I had to do this before the afternoon because it'd be messing me up. Wild Indian Roots. Grand Rising. Liz Robinson. Grand Rising. Peace. Dion Lowe. Grand Rising. Mr. TJ. Peace. Lachey. Grand Rising. And David Court. Shout out to David Court. But no, I'm here. I'm done. I'm through. I'm going on mute. My bad. No, you're talking about me.
I'm silly. Okay. Oh, a great deal of misunderstanding of traditional Indian ceremonies, including the snake dance of the Hopis and the sun dance of the plains, was relayed to the general public by these national news stories. As a result, Indian religious activities were trivialized and placed in circus-like contexts. Other indications of the general perspective on Indian cultures also surfaced. Often the national news articles, whites were referred to by their last names, where Indians were referred to by their first names.
One more time, please. This is very important too, as well.
Often in national news articles. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, yeah, this is another very, very important piece of information, especially dealing with genealogy and looking at records.
You're right, because what I was reading last night was a newspaper clipping that went through everything, and I was wondering why it was saying just the first name or first and middle name.
But now imagine sometimes when you see these names and you think it's a last name, sometimes it's actually a first name. Right. You have
Correct.
people that had Johnson as a first name.
Right.
Correct.
And even down to where you have people with two first names, quote
Yep.
unquote, two first names, you can get that easily confused. Charles could be somebody's last name.
Right.
And also somebody's first name. So
correct.
Yeah.
Man. I miss my Uncle Charles, y'all.
Yeah, because I know somebody whose first, middle, and last name are the three last names of their mother, father, and grandmother.
You know what? That's ill. I didn't even think about that.
I'm so serious.
They got three names and it's all surnames.
They're all surnames. And I didn't put that together until recently. Like, wait a minute, you don't have a name?
What? That's messed up. How you gonna tell that?
Okay, so
man, he ain't got no soul. What's going on, Gabrielle?
No,
wait a minute, you don't have a name. You're just a mutt of some other names.
No,
Yeah, they family, but that's messed up.
You know what, double cousin? I didn't think about it like that. I just
Grand Rising, you messed up. Lord, thank you for being a friend. You're not a friend. Tell me, I ain't got no name. You ain't got no name. Take the song back, Blanche. Fruit.
Oh, that boy head bad. I learned it recently, and I was like, oh, I guess that's why nicknames are important. Oh, that's why nicknames are important.
For sure. You got to be distinguished. You got to be able to distinguish. I would believe, you got suffixes nowadays when you named after somebody. So, I'm going on mute.
But think about it. Nicknames are normally names that you accept and take on.
Right.
That your parents will give you a name, but amongst your relatives and stuff, people call you particular attributes and you decide which one you accept to answer to.
Right.
It's basically a name that you take on.
Yep.
Another thing that makes you think about how many names on there when you see just one name is just a nickname.
Yeah, I've pulled
plenty of middle name is a nickname.
I've pulled plenty of records where it was the nickname, like census records, where it was just one name and it was a nickname. Often in national news articles, whites were referred to by their last names, whereas Indians were referred to by their first names. This portrayed Indians as childlike and undignified. This perspective supported proponents of assimilation who